I'm the head of apologies. My name is Declan Daly with Electric Ireland Superhomes. So I'm the head of engineering in the team. So we're coordinating a large amount of retrofits each year so I'll go through the process from a homeowner side and give you a flavor of some of our case studies and type of projects we carry out. Helen will speak about the grant side of it and the administration of the grants that are available to homeowners there later. So just briefly a bit about Electric Ireland Superhomes. So we started within Tipperary Energy Agency as a business unit retrofitting homes up to 8 years ago. So just last year and a half ago, we formed a joint venture with Electric Ireland. So we formed Electric Ireland Superhomes to be a registered one-stop shop with SEAI. So up to now, there is 13 one-stop shops around the country. The majority of them service nationwide. So that's growing quite strongly at the moment, and we hope to get up to 20 one-stop shops into next year. So the joint venture, we target to retrofit 35,000 homes between now and 2030. They all would be a mix of shallow to deep retrofits, but mainly with a heat pump as their primary heating system. So you'll see here some of our growth plans. So last year we retrofitted just over 100 homes. This year we have a target of 250. And we will scale up quite drastically over the next couple of years, and we would scale up our internal staff as well to meet those targets. So it's really looking at delivering a warmer, comfortable, healthy, low carbon home for Irish homeowners. And this is getting your house up to a minimum of a B2 using a whole house retrofit with a renewable heating source. So that means getting rid of the fossil fuel boiler. So that may be your open fire or your stove or your oil and gas boiler that's in place. So later we'll talk about, I suppose it's key that your house is insulated correctly first before you put in a new heating system to reduce your energy demand. So they're the basic principles of a home retrofit. Just to give you a flavor, a lot of you would be aware of this at the moment. So we monitor all our houses using the BER, the Building Energy Rating System. Currently, there's about 800,000 plus BERs that are published in the country. So you'll see there the graph shows the mix of those BERs. So a large amount of our housing stock would be in the CD and E bracket. So the average, I believe, is kind of a C1, or sorry, C3, D1. Was really trying to move those E's, F's, and G's off that chart and to retrofit them between now and 2030. So you'll see the number of homes there that are kind of at B2 or higher. So there's a considerable amount of work yet to do. So there's, out of those 800 plus BERs, there's about 690,000 of them that are currently a B2 or worse. That means they all need some type of intervention to be retrofitted. But the bigger picture then, there's 1.7 million occupied homes in the country. So there's about 900,000 that are not on the BER database. So they're unknown what those ratings are. So usually what triggers a BER is a rental or a sale or an energy upgrade that's done through the SEAI programs or the local authorities as well. So just to speak why retrofitting houses is so important. Obviously, it's quite topical at the moment on the energy crisis and trying to reduce our energy demand. So Ireland has about 25% of our greenhouse gases are in the housing sector. So out of our homes, about 700,000 are on oil heating, about 550,000 are on gas. We have 150,000 homes on electrical storage heaters. So that'd be a large amount of our apartments based around our cities. And then obviously the most higher emitting fuel would be our solid fuel. So that would be our turf, our coal, or so while that is only 180,000 homes, it's equivalent to about 25% of the housing emissions. As I said, it's about 85% of homes that need to be retrofitted to a more cleaner, renewable energy source. So it kind of gives you a flavor of why the one-stop shops maybe are set up to help homeowners, local authorities and housing associations retrofit their housing stock. So part of the one-stop shop process is really to deliver a service for a homeowner from start to finish. So you see in a couple of these slides, it's really talking about the awareness and marketing. So why should you carry out a retrofit? What are the key points? Like, it obviously will save you money on your energy bill. There's a comfort factor in your home. It's also will improve the health of the occupants because you now have a cleaner air environment. You don't have the coals and the soot that's coming off if you're living in an estate. That means better air quality outside as well, of course. So it's really looking at the whole, not just about saving money on your energy bills. There's also other benefits that can be quite important for people, and obviously it's switching away from fossil fuels. So we do marketing and public awareness around that in conjunction with SEAI as well. And then we engage with homeowners to deliver the one-stop shop service. So that's meeting our retrofit advisors to understand what the process is. Is your house suitable for an upgrade? So we would do a consultation over the phone, go through that process. And if you found your house was suitable for a retrofit, then we would send out one of our engineers in our design and tender process to physically survey the house. And we would do up a tender analysis and a cost optimum approach to retrofit your home, because every home is slightly different. So through that process, we would engage with contractors, which I'll show you in a case study there later, the different style of projects we do. We also manage the quality control of it. So are the correct products being used through the contractors? Are the contractors registered with SEAI and have all the equivalent certification for that? So we go through and feedback to the contractors to make sure the job is done correctly to a high standard, because most homeowners don't have that expertise to make sure they're getting a quality product. So we come in as the independent advisor to manage that on behalf of the homeowner. And we also trying to educate and engage with the wider industry, showing best practice case studies as well. So we find if someone retrofits their house in the estate, they usually talk to their neighbours quite a lot, and to get comfortable with this is a good solution and a good way forward to retrofit your home. So we manage all the grant paperwork and process with SEAI as well. We now cash flow the grant as well, which is a big savings for the homeowner. So then the homeowner only has to come up with the net cost of the grant, which I'll show again later. And we also provide looking at a low interest finance rates as well, which should be coming in kind of Q1 next year. So I won't dwell on this slide too long, but you'll see what a one-stop shop provides. So we do our initial assessment and design. You'll see there in the middle. We also look after the installation of the products, so linking in with the contractors for the heat pump and the commissioning and handover side of it. So it's kind of that education part of it is quite important, to how to use a heat pump or a ventilation system and what might be the maintenance schedule of them. And because it is different from your conventional oil or gas boiler, but not drastically different. And it's kind of a smarter, more intelligent system. So we monitor our homes as well and give feedback if there's any snagging issues at the start as well. And of course, all of this is done under an SEAI code of practice and technical standards that each product is installed correctly. And there's a high inspection rate as well at that to make sure there's a quality control. So this is the whole what a one-stop shop provides for a homeowner. So I suppose from a homeowner side as well, we always look at the balancing act when a homeowner decides to plan out a retrofit. It's like, where do I start? What do I do first? Because we get a large amount of people that may want to change their windows because the windows might be poor, or they wish to change them because it's aesthetically pleasing and they give the house a bit of a facelift. But mightn't be always the most sense to do. It's always insulate properly first. So you should always look at your attic or your walls insulation first before things like that. So like, which contractor should I use? Which products should I use? It's like, what is this a lot of hassle to go through the administration side of the grants? Like, what happens if I sell my house? Like, your house will be worth more money because every grade you go up on the BER scale, it is up worth 1% of the value of your home. So if you invest that money in your home and you did sell it in the future, your home would be worth more on the market. So it is important to think about that side of it as well, and we'll make sure it's done correctly. That's what the one-stop shop provides and removes all of those barriers away from the homeowner. So we provide that technical solutions, we provide a contractor, we sign a physical legal contract with each partner, like between us, the homeowner, and the contractor, and we supply certification and hand-holding through the process. So, and it's engaging and improving the system as we go on. We're also linked with educational partners like TUS as well today to help improve the process for the future as well, of course. So just kind of what is a whole house retrofit? So the one-stop shop approach is to get your house up to a minimum of a B2 rating. So on the in the climate action plan, the goal is to retrofit 500,000 homes to B2 by 2030. This is really looking at your house as a whole solution, from a fabric first approach, looking at your walls, your roofs, of course. Then it's looking at your windows and your doors. It's also looking at air tightness, ventilation, solar PV, and heat pump. So it's looking at your house as a system that every part of it works together. So here are some of the kind of standard retrofit measures that we look after. So it's always insulation first, of course. You always try to reduce your heat demand down before you put in a new heating source. So it's looking at your attic insulation, walls, doors, windows, and then air tightness. So air tightness is those leaks and drafts that we all know from living in our home where they are, if it's under the front door, or we have a poor window in a bedroom, or attic hatch, or hot press, things like that. That's kind of lots of different kind of pinholes and issues that may be in your home. And once we do that, then we look at a ventilation system of bringing in kind of fresh air into the home. So to get rid of those particular matters or kind of reduce that those emissions that may be in the home. So it's to bring in that clean, fresh air. So it's a much healthier environment to live in. And then it's, of course, your heat pump. We mainly deal with air to water heat pumps. And then it's looking at solar PV. So the cost to solar PV has dropped quite drastically over the last 5 or 10 years. So you probably see when you're driving around, there's a large amount of PV that would be installed now as well across the country. So there were the measures that I outlaid there, and we also provide a kind of a project management service as well as part of that to the homeowners. So that's kind of what a typical home. So it's always fabric first approach, like when you're retrofitting your home. So you'll see here roughly what the heat losses in an average home would be. So it's like up to 25% maybe escaping from your roof, 35% out through your walls, 10% out through your windows and doors. So as I said, a lot of people might think they might want to start with their windows, but it's in the average house, maybe only 10% of your energy loss is through your windows. It's better to tackle your roof and your walls first. And then there's about 15% plus through air tightness issues, and then about 15% through your floor, which obviously your floor wouldn't be a cost optimum solution to upgrade it. So it's usually the last thing you would consider. So as I said, your home is like a leaky bucket. You kind of have to be looking at all those pinholes. You might block up one, but the water may be still coming out, or the heat loss or the energy in your home. So as I said, it's to consider your house as a total solution. Then it's looking on at your air tightness. So you can install a great insulation or a heat pump, but if your energy is escaping your heat from your home as quick as you're generating it, it's not very cost effective. So you'll see all those blue lines are where the heat may be escaping across the house. So it's looking at all those key junctions through a potential suspended floor or through doors and windows, basically through any services that might be passing through your wall, like pipes from your boiler or from your washing machine or dishwasher, that the pipe might be only half the size of the hole that's going through in the wall. So that's a large amount of heat that may be escaping. So once you generate your heat in your home, it's most cost effective the longer you can keep it in your house and not escaping through all these leaks and cracks that may be through your home. So we do an air tightness test at the end of the project to validate all the measures that have been done throughout the retrofit. So then it's switching to that healthier home. So we're all probably in our lifetime have seen the range cooker, or a large amount of people have this still as their primary heating system. So you'll see in this photograph, slightly tongue-in-cheek, you'll see the person with the bag of turf beside the range cooker that might be brought in every day from a shed outside. And you'd find a lot of elderly people as well would have these in homes as well. So it's cleaning out the ashes. It's kind of affecting people's respiratory issues and breathing, and we have a strong percentage of asthma and COPD in the country. So a lot of this aggravates those issues. So it is switching from a fossil fuel system to a renewable heat source, as in an air to water heat pump you'll see there on the right. Yeah, so just to talk about the one-stop shop process. So to avail of the grants, and Helen will go through this in a few minutes as well, it's kind of your home needs to be built pre-2011. To avail of the higher grants, it needs to be a B3 or worse starting out. And you need to be able to get 100 uplift on your BER. So that means you need to, so you see a B3 there on the scale. So if you were a B3, you'd have to get up towards A bracket. But if you were down in the G range, you have a large amount of scope to improve. So when you finish your post-works BER, you need to be a B2 or higher. So a large number of homes we've done over the last few years, we actually find with fabric first approach with a heat pump, 85% of the homes we've retrofitted would get to an A3 or better. So once that's on the average home. You will have smaller homes that might be a B1 or B2, but the average ones would be able to get into the A bracket kind of quite comfortably. It's all about the cost optimum approach of how to retrofit a home. So that would be the requirements of the one-stop shop scheme. There's obviously grants available that Helen will go through as well for single measures. So it's not all about doing everything in one go, because the average cost for a retrofit can range quite drastically, but you can spend like €2,000–3,000 insulating your attic and get up to kind of 1,500 back through a grant. So I'll kind of quickly go through the the retrofit process for a homeowner. So as it says, we do an initial consultation with the homeowner, with our retrofit advisors. So that would be an online consultation with the homeowner to go through what the estimated costs might be on your job and what the grant funding available would be. And so a certain percentage of homeowners then will go through that process and find that potentially the cost might be too much, or the works might be too invasive, or they may decide to do it at a later stage or do single measures. But if it was within their client's budget, then we would move to a home survey. So we would send out physical retrofit engineer to do a baseline study of where your home is right now. And we would then design with a fabric first approach a retrofit using a cost optimum. So what is the most value for money to retrofit your home? Because we are that independent, trusted advice between the homeowner and the contractor to give that technical solution to the client. So then we issue a full energy report that will outlay the measures that are needed, the cost, and the grant. So in that home survey is with SEAI, it's called there's a grant available up to €350 to do that through the home energy assessment, the HEA process. Then if a homeowner wishes to go ahead, we manage all the grant process through SEAI and all the final design of sizing the heat pump and the radiators and all the equipment. And then we sign a physical contract and the work proceeds on site. And we look after the stage payments between the homeowner and the contractor. And then we do a handover at the end and a snag where how to operate your heat pump and your ventilation system or any other devices that were installed in conjunction with the contractor. So you'll see here some of our internal team is our retrofit advisor team. Then we have a team of engineers that would survey the homes, and we have finance and customer support. So this is the one-stop shop, kind of start to finish, everything under one roof, from the initial survey to delivering a whole house retrofit at the end. So I will go through one or two case studies there of some typical projects. So we have three main projects we deal with. One is we have a large pool of contractors that we have a framework with around the country that deliver retrofits on site. So we manage all the design and project management. We don't physically install the products ourselves. That would be our approved contractors across the country. We also deal with what we call heat pump ready homes. So these are homes that would have done a large amount of upgrades in the past, potentially through the single measure process, or there'll be newer homes maybe built from the late 1990s into up to 2001. So they would be built to a fairly good standard already. So they would need minimum interventions, and then deal with a third style of a project, which is a consultancy. So they would be working with architects and builders and other engineers that may be buying an older home and maybe adding a small extension to the side of it. So some of them go through planning, or they're linked in with an architect as well. Yeah, so it's just some, so people usually ask what's the average cost of a retrofit. So unfortunately, the answer is how long is a piece of string. Each home is quite different, as you see, and it depends on what your starting point. So we have some heat pump ready style homes that could be just a heat pump and attic insulation, or they could be down in the 15,000 bracket. But you could have other bigger homes that need a large amount of upgrades that could be up into the 75,000, 80,000 bracket. But that would be literally insulating pretty much every surface in the home, which I'll show you one or two measures in a moment. So this would be obviously before the SEAI grants. So Helen kind of will go through the grants there in a few minutes of what is available on each measure. But as a registered one-stop shop, we cash flow the grants now, which is quite important for the homeowners. That means that they have more disposable budget. So if your cost of works was, let's say 40,000, there might have been a grant available there of kind of 20,000 euros. So that means you would only have to come up with the difference, which is the other 20,000. And then when the work is complete, SEAI reimburse the one-stop shop for that grant that we would cash flow. That means that you have to potentially take less out of your personal savings, or a loan, or less of a top-up of a mortgage. So it really does help the budget for the individual homeowners, that process as well. And all these are governed through Sustainable Energy of Ireland, SEAI as well. So we are one of those 13 registered one-stop shops that provide that service. If you can see here, quite a typical ex-local authority home. This one is in Tipperary. So this house was a G rating before, that had that range cooker I showed in the photograph there earlier on. So you'll see the picture there. It's a mass concrete home that has a small flat roof extension there to the side. It had double glazed windows before. And you'll see on the right-hand side, so the measures we did there is a full external wall insulation wrap. We put in new windows and we brought them out into the external wall leaf, so that eliminates cold bridges. You'll see there on the side, we insulated the flat roof of the extension piece. And we also took down the rain shelter that you see over the side door. So that would be a massive thermal bridge in the wall. So that would be where a large amount of heat would be directly coming out through that thermal bridge. Yes, the homeowner was happy to remove that rain shelter there to side, but like things like that would be a large amount of heat loss. Was as a suspended floor. You see from the eagle-eyed people, you see a small little vent there on the bottom. We took up floorboards and we insulated the floor of that living room as well. And so like that job there was a cost of 54,000 for grants to the homeowner. Under the one-stop shop scheme, you could avail of a grant up for 29,100. Sorry, the grant was 24,900. So that means the homeowner had to finance 29,100 for this project. So it obviously reduced their energy bills by almost a third. Their house increased in value and their energy rating. So this went from a G up to an A3. So that's almost 14%, I believe, the value of the home would increase on the market from a G to a quite attractive A3 model. And it's obviously a much cleaner, healthier environment to live in as well. So that would be through our kind of approved contractor model, where we would go out, survey the house from the start, engage with a local contractor. So we tried to work with local contractors as much as possible, just to help local employment as well, that people are not traveling to Dublin or Cork or Galway, long commutes, and it's more sustainable local jobs for plumbers and carpenters and people installing windows and externals. So it is quite important from that side of the projects as well. So here you'll see another project. This one is in Dublin. So this house was slightly dilapidated. It wasn't in use for a few years before it was bought. You see here I had a brick on one side and had some timber inserts there between the windows on the other side. That one, and it had a flat roof on the side of it as well. So that went from an F all the way up to an A2, because we were tight in space. You actually see the heat pump is up there on the flat roof because there wasn't much space out of the back of the house on a confined site. The cost of this project was 71,000 before grants, and there was a sizable grant of 29,900 available And so the cost after this was 41,100 to the client. So you see it's quite a drastic visual change in the home as well. Like the picture on the left is actually the front of the house, the picture on the right is the back of the house. So this is all new windows and doors, ventilation system, external, again, a flat roof, insulated, and the attic as well. So quite a considerable amount of project work done in this type of a home. So I kind of a confined site in an estate as well. So this would be our step-by-step approach we do for retrofits. So as I said before, it's all about using a cost optimum approach and fabric first. So like this is what we would normally see in our energy report, where we would show what is the base case for your home. You see this home here was an F starting out, so 410 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. And we will go through this process of what is the best bang for your buck, basically the cost optimum approach. So it's always insulation first, so attic, external, then windows and doors, then your flat roof, and then put in your heat pump once you've all those measures. You'll see those measures, we took that job from an F, then up to an A3 with a heat pump. And then if you were to put in solar PV at the bottom, you would get up to an A2. So it's kind of looking at the step by step and where do you hit that sweet point of the B2 to avail of the one-stop shop grant. You'll see here at the flat roof stage, we were at a C2. And then when we added in our renewable energy heating source with our heat pump, we went to the A3 bracket. So kind of I quickly there, just conscious of time as well. So you'll see this is a heat pump plus type of a project we call it, so a heat pump ready home. So this house had some measures done already. So what we did is we pumped the walls because I had an empty cavity wall. The attic was done previously. Then we added in a heat pump and we put 6 solar PV panels on the roof, kind of 2.3 kilowatts. So we took this house then from a C2 up to an A2. So the cost of this was 25,000 plus. Cost after the grant was just under 12,000, with a generous grant of 13,800 on the job. So this was those 3 measures: a heat pump, PV, and cavity. So under the one-stop shop, you can get like 6,500 for a heat pump. You can also get up to 2,000 for upgrading your central heating. So that's looking at your radiators. And there's a 2,000 bonus there for getting to a B2. So that's where those figures come from. So like if that homeowner had to change their gas boiler, I believe, like replace a gas boiler may cost you anything between 3,000 and 5,000 euro. You're still on a fossil fuel system. So the difference between upgrading a gas boiler and putting in a heat pump now has drastically reduced with these higher grants. It starts to make a lot more sense now. So kind of we deal with a third range of a project that some of you may be involved in is a consultancy. So this is a much larger project that mainly working with an architect or a consulting engineer, kind of building an extension possibly on a home onto an existing house that would be built kind of pre-2011. A lot of these we would find are built in the kind of 30s to 70s bracket. An older home that may be affordable for someone to buy, and then they invest in the energy upgrades with an extension. So we would join that professional team then with the architect, and we would look at the building regulations compliance as well through the retrofit journey. So we would use our technical expertise in-house to be able to help the architect and the engineer on the other side to make sure we're conforming with all the current building regulations, especially Part L, which is looking at the energy side of it. So there's kind of 2 pictures of 2 homes in Cork that we've done in the last year. You see this has the existing house there on the left was new windows, and it was dry lined. and an extension added around at the back. And then the one on the left, there was an extension. So where the door is, the original home kind of stopped there. So they built an extension down the side of the home. These are kind of larger architectural-led projects that can still avail of the one-stop shop grants as well. So we would provide that service with a consultant engineer or architect. Yeah, so that's my presentation for now. I'm happy for any questions in the chat or questions at the end of the presentation as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Declan. That was brilliant. Yeah, we've a couple of questions in the chat there. As I'm just a bit wary on time, I think we'll move on straight to Helen, if that's okay, and then we'll come back to the questions. And keep the questions coming in the chat, and Declan, if you wouldn't mind having a look at them preemptively for the Q&A session at the end too.
Yeah, no problem.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So with that, I'll share Helen's presentation. And I'll pass over to you, Helen. Can you see that now?
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Declan, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. So as mentioned, my name is Helen Williams, and I work for the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, or the SEAI. If you could have that next slide, please. Thank you. So if you're not familiar with us, we're a government agency, and so we work with government itself, but also with homeowners, businesses, communities, etc. And our aim is to create a cleaner energy future. That's our remit, as it were. So if we could have the next slide, please. So yeah, our role is really helping Ireland move towards what we're terming a low carbon energy future. What that really means is using less energy and using clean energy. So we're of the belief, as I think probably everyone in the room today is as well, that energy should be environmentally sustainable, but also secure and affordable, crucially, especially at the moment. I think that's kind of top of mind for all of us. So that's great. Thanks. If we could, thank you. So kind of looking domestically, I suppose, kind of honing in, as Declan mentioned earlier, the climate action plan, the government's climate action plan and programme for government have some significant goals, significant targets around reducing Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions. And what that means for the domestic sector is the upgrading of 500,000 existing homes to a BER B2. That also includes the installation of 600,000 heat pumps, the vast majority of which will be installed in existing homes. And again, Declan alluded to this earlier, our data indicates that around about half of the homes in Ireland have a BER rating of a D or lower, so therefore are going to require significant upgrades in order to get them to that B2, that cost optimal B2. So it's a big task, but I suppose the positive to take from it is that to date, SEAI has already supported over 450,000 homes in doing some degree of retrofit. So that could be deep retrofit, could be just individual measures, but we are making progress. Thank you. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Title slide. So yeah, I'll just, I suppose now talk a little bit more about the home energy upgrades themselves and what they mean for you. So the reason home energy use is important from a sort of national perspective is that homes actually account for 1/4 of all the energy consumption in Ireland, which when you think about it, when you think about industry, about agriculture, data centres, transport, etc., it is quite significant. And again, I'm probably repeating a lot of what Declan said, but heating is the big one. It accounts for 80% of your home energy in a typical home. So that's space heating and water heating. So the other bits, your electronics, your cooking, etc. It's not to say they aren't important, they are, but if you're not tackling heating, you're really not addressing energy consumption at all. Thank you. I think our figures, the Superhomes figures versus the SEAI figures, are slightly different here, but basically the same message. We get lots of questions. I get a lot of people interested in upgrading their doors and windows. I think it's partly the aesthetic, and partly you can sort of feel the draft, or you can hear the windows rattling. And it's not to say it isn't important, but when you're looking at the whole home, the biggest losses are coming through the roof and your walls, and then, as Declan said, also your floor as well, though from the perspective of an upgrade that is much more difficult. So your roof and your walls, those are the big hitters in terms of that heat loss. So that's what you need to tackle first. Thank you. Now the benefits, I mean, you're all here today, so you're probably well versed in the benefits are, but it deserves a little review, I think, just so we can all remind ourselves. A big one at the moment, you know, it is getting colder and wetter and all the rest of it, and comfort is a huge one. And as well as your home being warmer and, you know, cozier, whatever that may mean, but warmer and cozier, but it is healthier as well. The air quality is better. You don't have as much damp and mold issues. Particularly for older people, vulnerable people, and people with any health issues or young children, that is really, really important. And you will see a huge difference actually if you do carry out any degree of upgrade, to be honest. There's also the savings piece as well. I think that's probably the first thing that most of us think of when we think about making that investment, is the savings on energy bills. And of course, this year has been extraordinary in a terrible way from the point of view of energy bills. And it really has brought to the fore the importance of making sure that you're not wasting money on heating your home. Then, of course, there's the environmental benefit. And again, I think nowadays more and more of us are really rightfully concerned about our carbon footprint. So if you do make that step, if you retrofit your home, even just a little bit, you are making a big difference towards reducing your own personal carbon footprint. And then, of course, there's the value piece, not to be sniffed at. It will improve the value of your property if you upgrade your home, especially if you bring it up, as I said, to that B2, that cost optimal BER B2 rating, or of course, even better. Thanks for that. Have the next one, please. Now, it can seem a bit of a mammoth task, I suppose, upgrading your home. So we've broken it down into 3 key steps. And again, this is probably just reiterating a lot of what Declan said. But it is important, it's worth repeating. So the 3 steps as we see them are: first, assess, then insulate, that's improving the building fabric that Declan was talking about, and then the final step is to add renewables. So I'll talk about those in more detail now in the next couple of slides. Thank you. So the assessment piece then, yeah, if you don't know where to start and you haven't had a BER done recently, that's the key first step. So there's a list of registered BER assessors on our website, and that BER cert and that advisory report will provide you with a roadmap to achieving the B2 BER rating. As Declan mentioned, and I will talk about this later as well, there's also the home energy assessment. Now, this is a grant that one-stop shops can deliver through the one-stop shop service. I will talk about it in more detail, so I won't go on about it here, but that basically provides you with the BER, and then a little more detail. It provides you with some added extras as well that will help you make that decision around what makes most sense for you and for your home. Thank you. And then the next step, of course, is insulation. So keeping that heat in. So as I mentioned in that earlier slide, and Declan mentioned as well, the keys are really getting the walls and the roof done. Once you've done that, you're well on the way to having a much warmer home. To improve things still further, you may well need to replace the old doors and windows. And then, of course, there's the floor insulation too, which from the perspective of whoever's living in the home, the homeowner, it is a bit more hassle, to be honest with you. But you will see significant benefits, especially if your home is that bit draftier, that bit older. There's a range of different grants for insulation. I'll talk about those in a little more detail later on, but so you can get obviously your attic, your rafter insulation, cavity wall insulation, and then you can get external wall insulation or your dry lining either. The grants vary according to the type of insulation, first and foremost, and also the dwelling type as well. So I'll review the grant values for the one-stop shop in the next couple of slides. And we'll move on now. Thank you very much. So yeah, the final step then is of course adding renewables. Again, I think it's probably one that a lot of us sort of jump to first, because certainly in the case of solar PV, it's very visual. It's very sort of, you know, it looks cool, to be honest with you, and it seems like, you know, it's a great investment, as indeed it is. But you do need to get your home well insulated first and foremost, particularly if you're thinking about getting a heat pump, which I would highly recommend. It's not going to work unless you have a well insulated home. Something called a heat loss indicator, which is sort of covered in your home energy assessment. But if your heat loss indicator is too high, i.e. if you are losing too much heat through your building fabric, then a heat pump will be extremely expensive for you as a user. But it is a great option, but it's just, you do have to make sure your home is ready for it first. Then of course there's solar PV. Increasingly popular now. I think we're all seeing more and more solar PV panels on roofs, and that's fantastic. So that, just, I'm sure we all know, but just so you know, the solar PV is using the sun's energy to generate electricity for your home, and then the solar thermal is using that energy to provide your or add to your hot water. So solar PV again, and indeed solar thermal, grants available for that. Grants available for the heat pump too, so I'll go over those in a little while. Solar PV, it's also worth remembering that you can now get the money back if you're feeding into the grid. So you can speak to your electricity provider about that. But we'll have the next slide, please. Thank you. So there are a number of different routes you can take through SEAI if you're interested in getting a home energy upgrade. Home energy upgrade, I should say, is the sort of, it's basically what we used to have called a home retrofit. So it's the sort of the new term for that. So first of all, there's the fully funded energy upgrade. Now, I won't be going into a huge amount of detail about this, but there is more information on our website, or you can drop us an email. This is for homeowners in receipt of certain welfare payments. Now, it is fully funded and managed by SEAI. It includes all the steps you'd expect: the home survey, the works, and then the follow-up BER and inspection. But it is only for those qualifying homeowners. The next one then, the one-stop shop service, which we've heard a fair bit about from Declan today, and I'll be talking about later on as well in my slides too. So as Declan mentioned, this is a complete home energy upgrade solution, what we can call a deep retrofit. It's partly funded by SEAI and fully managed by the one-stop shop. So that's the huge advantage there. And I will talk about all these in more detail in the following slides too. And then the last one then is the individual energy upgrades. So this is if you don't have perhaps you don't have the budget, or you're not particularly interested in getting all the energy upgrade works done in one go. You prefer to spread it out maybe over a couple of years. That's absolutely fine. You can still get grants for most of the measures that you can get through the one-stop shop. You can still get them through SEAI. I suppose one of the key disadvantages of it is that you do have to manage the project yourself. So you choose the contractor, you apply for the grant, and then once the works are complete, SEAI will reimburse you the grant value. So it is, I suppose, a little more hassle from that perspective, but it is a great option for those of you who aren't looking to do a deep retrofit just yet. So I will talk, sorry, if we could have the next slide, just click in my own button there. I'll just sort of, show you, I suppose, this is a kind of handy table comparing what grants are available through the various different routes. And as you can see, the one-stop shop service does provide the widest range of grants. So the fully funded energy upgrade, you get most of them in there, but you don't get your solar. And then in the individual energy upgrades, you don't get the doors and windows, which I know is, as I said at the beginning, I know it is very appealing for a lot of you. And you also don't get the home energy assessment piece there. I think that for me, the biggest difference between the two is, as I said, the project management aspect. The one-stop shop does project manage it for you, so it takes away a lot of the hassle. You don't have to be applying for the grant yourself, which I think is a huge advantage. But if we could have the next slide, please. So I hope you can all see that okay, and it's not too tiny. It will, I think we're showing the slides anyway afterwards, and all of this information is of course on our website as well. But as I said, that this is the one-stop shop is the widest range of grants that we have available through SEAI. And so depending on the measure, you're likely to get more. So for the insulation, you're going to get more for a detached house than you would for an apartment. So just running through those there, as you can see, there's generous grants available for a heat pump that's 6,500 for all homes, and then apartment is a little bit less. Central heating system, again, similarly very generous grant of 2,000 for all home types. The air to air is 3,500. It's a bit less because it's a smaller unit, it's less complicated. You can get a grant of €700 for heating controls. The launch bonus is running this year. It is being revised for 2023. So I can't confirm yet whether or not that €2,000 launch bonus is going to be around for next year. But even without that, there's still a generous range available. So the ceiling insulation, raft and cavity wall insulation grants, they are all extremely worthwhile. The payback on those is extraordinary. Those grants are extremely generous still, even with the current spike in prices. Those are still going to be going to eat into a lot of that cost. External wall insulation is expensive. And the grants reflect that. So you've got 8,000 is the maximum grant available for external wall insulation for a detached property. But the costs are high, I'm afraid to say, and they are, I'm also afraid to say, getting higher at the moment. But nevertheless, it's an excellent choice. It makes a huge difference to the heat loss from your wall, obviously. It also, as you'll have seen on the photos that Declan showed us earlier, it really improves the appearance of the house, the external appearance. It makes a massive difference. I've had friends and family who've had it done, and yeah, it is remarkable. It's absolutely transformed the place. Then there's the extremely popular Windows upgrade. So you get a maximum of €4,000 grant for detached property to get your windows upgraded. Oh, the lights just turned off. That's always, so there we go. I'm walking the talk as regards to energy savings. And yeah, so grant for doors as well, maximum of 2 doors, you can get €800 per door. There's the floor insulation, 3,500 for that, which again, quite generous. I would just say that, you know, it is a bit more hassle, but again, absolutely worth doing in terms of the difference it makes with regards to damp, with regards to general comfort in the home. Your solar thermal, so that's the one for your hot water, is 1,200, and then your solar PV, so it's 900 per kilowatt peak, up to a max of 2, and then from 2 to 4, it's €300 per kilowatt peak. Then there's a grant for mechanical ventilation as well, and air tightness. So as many of you may know, one thing you have to be cautious of when carrying out a deep retrofit is making sure that there is sufficient ventilation in the property, and that you are, you know, making sure that you're not going to end up with any problems with damp and mold and so on. So those will put you right there. And then there's the home energy assessment, which I'll talk about in one of the later slides. And there's a grant for €350 for that. There are also, finally, grants for the project management as well. So there will be a contribution towards those costs. Thanks very much. So yeah, the home energy assessment then. So it's a detailed review of your home. So it does include the BER and the BER advisory report. It'll also include sort of your own personal goals with regards to energy improvements. So perhaps you want to, you know, you absolutely want to get a heat pump, and you absolutely want to get solar panels, or you're really keen to get to a B1 or whatever it is. You have a chat with the one-stop shop about that, about your goals, and then they will make sure that that's sort of reflected in the report. It will also include a heat pump technical assessment. So that's that review of your property to check that, is it ready for a heat pump? If it's not, what needs to be done to make it ready, to make a heat pump a viable heating option for you. The report will also include a bespoke pathway to a B2 or better. And all I mean by that is a sort of step-by-step breakdown of what measures you need to do what measures you need to install, how much they're going to cost you, and what impact they're going to have on your BER and on your heat loss and your energy use. And then finally, of course, it will include an estimated cost of the measures and showing the grants, the SEAI grants taken off that as well. So with that information, then you're kind of armed, you know what you're getting into. And then if you decide to go down the one-stop shop works route, you can, but it's not obligatory. You can get the home energy assessment regardless, and then make your decision then. And so, as I've mentioned multiple times probably now, there is an SEAI grant of €350 available for that HEA, for that home energy assessment. So thank you. Now, Declan touched on this, so I won't bang on about it too much, but the eligibility criteria then for the one-stop shop. So it's for homeowners and non-corporate landlords. So if you're a tenant, I'm afraid you have to convince your landlord to go ahead with it, because it is obviously their property. It's for homes built before 2011. The reason being that building standards, building codes improved to such a degree that they're all going to be of a certain standard anyway, post 2011. The planned upgrades do need to achieve at least a B2 and have that 100 kilowatt an hour uplift that Declan mentioned as well. So you do need to be jumping a certain number of steps up the scale in order to get the grant. But I should just say, because we do sometimes get asked this isn't something you have to figure out yourself. This is what the one-stop shop will do for you, and they'll say with these measures you will get to a B2 or a B1 or an A3 or whatever. You will meet the 100 kilowatt an hour uplift. You're all good to go. And the final thing just to bear in mind is the works do have to be completed within 12 months. Now that's not an issue in terms of actually carrying out the work, certainly shouldn't be, but just to bear in mind that once the application's gone in, the clock does start ticking there. So just something to think about. Again, you'll be able to discuss this with the one-stop shop. Thanks very much. So just to wrap up, I suppose, and then we should have plenty of time for questions, I think then. So the one-stop shop is a complete home energy upgrade solution. It is fully managed by the one-stop shop, including application to the grant. It does offer the widest range of SEAI grants, and it's all about supporting multiple energy upgrades in one go. And that is just worth repeating, because I suppose sometimes people, they're kind of a bit miffed perhaps, or a bit unsure about why you have to get to the B2. The whole purpose of the one-stop shop support is to incentivize deep retrofit, to incentivize getting to that B2. So that's the reason you have to get it all done in one go. And as I said, you do have to carry out that minimum number of upgrades. A huge benefit for you as the homeowner, lights going off again, need to be a more dynamic speaker, there we go, is that you only pay for the works net of the grant. So in terms of the cash flow, the one-stop shop is, they're the ones who will be applying on your behalf and receiving the grant back to them. So it is hugely beneficial from that perspective. There is a list of registered one-stop shops on our website. I think there's 12 currently registered with us. We do expect more to be joining over the next couple of months. Superhomes is obviously one of them. There are others there, and they've all gone through an extremely rigorous registration process, as Declan will no doubt attest to. So we are, and I should say as well, it's not just covering the technical capabilities. The registration process takes in a whole range of aspects, so customer service, general project management, etc., etc. So you can be very confident that you will get a high quality service with any of these one-stop shops. I think that's my last slide. I might just check if that's all right, just in case I've forgotten anything. No, just a thank you for listening. So I know we have questions now. Obviously, if there's anything we don't get round to asking or answering for you, do check out our website or give us a call. And I think our email, I think if you email info@seai.ie as well, they're great on the other end of that. So give us a shout, and we can give you a hand if there's anything specific to the grants that you're a bit stuck on. But thanks very much for listening anyway.
Thank you, Helen. That was brilliant. We've had Declan working away in the background with the questions. I've seen that
stuff. I'm hoping they'll all be answered by the time I get to look at them. So that was what I was aiming for.
Good plan. It was a good plan, because
yeah.
There's one question I think that I would say is, I'll just pop it out here for a second so I can see it better. It said, will window when those become available for individual grant options instead of just fully funded and one-stop shops? That's, I'm guessing, is directed directly towards you, Helen. But...
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's one we get a lot. There's no current plans to do so, and the reason being is that, as you'll have seen from my slides and Declan's slides, they don't have a huge impact in terms of the energy savings, and we can't really justify a grant for them with that small benefit. I know that there are multiple other benefits in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of improving the value of the home, and comfort as well to a degree, because you don't tend to feel the draft. But in terms of the actual energy savings, we just can't really justify it at this stage. I can't say for sure it's never going to happen, but it isn't on the cards at the moment.
Perfect, yeah. And is that in the case of, let's say, even with as I know Declan had some comments on in the chat about traditional buildings as well. Traditional buildings too, would it be similar, or would it be a different story in that case?
Yeah, traditional buildings is yeah, I see that question there. Yeah, it's a challenging one. As Declan said, there are a number of issues to bear in mind with traditional buildings, around the breathability, I suppose, of the fabric, and making sure that you don't end up with damp and condensation issues. From a grants perspective, a big issue we have is that a lot of traditional materials are not currently SEAI certified, and until that certification happens, SEAI can't award grants to materials that aren't certified, that we aren't confident that they are safe, doing what they're supposed to do, and there aren't going to be any issues down the line. I believe there's some government guidance, which is I think was supposed to come out last year. We're all still waiting for it, which will hopefully provide a little more clarity. And I think the sort of certification piece is hopefully happening in the background as well. But it is a bit of currently it is a bit of an issue. And I think, as Declan said as well, a key for anyone who does own a traditional or period building is do make sure you speak to a conservation architect or another expert in that area, because it is a bit of a challenge at the moment. I know there is we're a little short on guidance here at the moment, as I said, but if you could dare to look over the Irish Sea, there is, I think Scotland Heritage, or whatever they're called, have done some pretty good guidance on it, and I think in Wales they have as well. So if you're interested, it might be worth digging around elsewhere, just having a little look. But it is at the moment a bit of a problem, unfortunately, for Irish homes.
Yeah, just in that question there for a second, there is grants available for that style of home, but you may not, as Helen said, be able to get a grant for the wall insulation, because to do it correctly, it needs to be a breathable solution, so more of a natural product. So that product would be necessary NSAI certification behind it. But if you still were able to get the whole house up to a B2 standard and the HLI, you may be able to get a grant for the heat pump or other measures within the home, but you probably won't be able to get it for the natural product that should go on the wall, because we don't want to put a standard PIR, like a dry lining slab, on that wall, because more than likely in the future you will get mold and mushrooming effect behind that dry lining, and then that affects your health as well, like your asthma, COPD, and all those issues that come from that. So you have to be wary of putting the right solution on the wall. Hopefully in the future, those products will become certified and grants will be available, but they're not at the moment. But the key is you can look at the houses and a whole solution. The grant may be slightly less because you don't have one for the wall, but you may be able to get one for the windows or for the heat pump or for the solar panels that might go on the roof.
Excellent, yeah, that's perfect. I think. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. That's good to see. Okay, there's one question I think is pretty directed towards Declan and Superhomes, is in terms of the delay for the one-stop shops, or you would say the retrofits. Is this a capacity issue with the contractors, or where do you see the kind of the blockage? Where is there just too many to do, or do you think it's a capacity issue with contractors?
Yeah, there is high demand. So the scheme was launched by the minister back in February, I believe. And then there was a process for the one-stop shops to become registered. So when they did become registered, then there was a large amount of applications that came into the scheme. At the start, there was 5 registered one-stop shops. Now there's 12 or 13, I believe. So like that was a blockage. Like, it does take time to assess all these homes, to go out to site, because contractors are extremely busy as well. It does take time for them to return a tender. And then if someone decides to go ahead with a retrofit, materials need to be ordered. So like back in the middle of the summer, like lead time on windows could have been up to 15 to 20 weeks. Like, that has drastically reduced now that windows can be 5 to 8 weeks from an order. So there was a whole supply chain backlog coming out of COVID, and a lot of issues with labor force on sites, either through the factories making the products or shortage of contractors, because there is a push for new builds and there is a push for retrofit at the moment. So there is a limited pool of physical plumbers and carpenters and plasterers and electricians in the industry. I know the ETBs and TUS and government are putting a lot of effort into the apprentice models and getting more labor force available as well. So that would be some of the capacity constraints. And it would be in the one-stop shops. Like, this is now a multi-annual budget. So one-stop shops have heavily invested. Like, I speak for Electric Ireland Superhomes. When we started our joint venture a year and a half ago, we were 11 staff. As of today, we're 38. So we are scaling up quite drastically, and the same with SEAI. I believe they've added, Helen might say, I think over nearly 100 staff have been added or planned to be added into SEAI as well. So we are growing quite drastically. You're right, it's probably not fast enough for the homeowners, but it is improving. So it does take time for the one-stop shop to grow into this, and the labor force. So it is building confidence in the market, this scheme, but it does take a bit of time for it to get up to kind of full altitude of running continuously throughout the year, because before, the old grants were kind of a stop-start scenario. Now all those barriers have been removed, so that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think, yeah, I agree with the, it does, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither can the grant system or retrofits. So that's something for people to keep in mind. Just another question here is that, in general, would electrical and plumbing be upgraded in the process? They're saying in the case that they were done in 2004, and also how are open fireplaces generally managing these upgrades?
Yeah, so every home would be assessed on its own basis. So if a house was upgraded in, I'm not sure if it was built in 2004 or upgraded in 2004. So if it was either, that house wouldn't need to be upgraded. So it's usually, we would evaluate the heat pump, but it's important to evaluate what's down the line of the heat pump. So that's, are the radiators sized enough to emit the heat? So we do a room by room heat loss calculation based on how well you insulate your home. So is pushing a heat pump, but is the radiator in every room large enough to be able to heat your house to 18 to 21 degrees, depends on the condition or activity in that room. And sometimes the pipe work has to be upgraded because it might be old gun barrel or micro bore pipe work. But the pipe work could be 30, 40 years old, and you don't want, the heat pump works on a slightly higher pressure. So you don't want your plumbing to become a sprinkler system full of holes. So it is evaluated at the start, and it's costed in of how many radiators you need to upgrade, and do you need to upgrade your plumbing. But if it's 2004 house, I would say the plumbing, probably the pipe work would be fine. Some radiators probably need to be changed, mainly probably your kitchen, your living room, and your master bedroom is usually what we find. Open fires, yes, absolutely. Open fires are literally a big hole in the middle of your home, where when it's not being used, it's just sucking the chimney effect, all the heat out of the house. So we would either close it up, or some people put in a wood burning stove instead. But we wouldn't recommend that open fires are left open as part of a whole house retrofit. It'd either be closed up or a stove put in place. Normally, up to 80% of the time, it would be closed. The mantle and everything still stays there, so visually you still have your nice fireplace. It's just not functioning as a heat source, and it's not a large heat loss as well, because it's only been used a fraction of the time. The rest of the time, you're just losing heat out of your house.
Yeah. I think with that, I hope everyone is okay.
Sorry, there's just one question from Ricky, which I just thought I'd answer. He's just asking about publishing audits. No, Ricky, we don't publish the audits of the one-stop shops. So they all, a certain proportion of all the works completed will get inspected by an independent contractor, contracted to SEAI. And if there's any issues there, the payment on that is withheld. So the payment to the one-stop shop is withheld until the issues are addressed. We also carry out regular business reviews, quarterly business reviews with the one-stop shops. And that forum is used to sort of address any concerns that either the one-stop shop or SEAI has. It's kind of a useful sort of touching base on a range of different issues, both technical and otherwise. But no, we don't publish, and I don't imagine we'd have any intention of publishing any of that data on our website or anything like that. I hope that helps, but if not, yeah, just jump in.
Thanks, Helen. I missed that one.
No, you're right.
Perfect. So yeah, with that, unless anyone has any more questions, we can leave it there. Super presentations, that's good to hear. Good feedback coming back. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I'd like to thank Declan and Helen for their presentations today. I will be sharing the slides after the event PDF format, obviously, and also I'll be sending a link around to the Superhomes website where this webinar will be uploaded to as well. So with that, thank you all and have a good day.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
everyone.
Thanks everyone.